Hello children, now we continue with the nervous system, that is the transmission of the nerve impulse. The message what is taken by the nerve cell, that is a neuron, that message is accepted by the dendrites. As you can see these dendrites here, these dendrites are spread out into the sense organs, and from the sense organs they take in the reception, that is all the information, and they pass it on to the cell body, the cyton. From the cyton, the message goes downwards. You can see the arrow mark shown. It goes downwards along the axon. And from the axon, it reaches to the next neuron. This is the next neuron which is adjacent to it. And down you can see where the axon ends, the black circle marked. So that is the point where it transmits the message from one neuron to the other neuron. So let us see what happens there. As you can see in this diagram, when the messages are taken up by the dendrites, it sets up an electrical impulse in the nerve cell, and that is passed on onto the axon, and the axon reaches to the next dendrite, the dendrite of the next or the adjacent neuron. And in this enlarged part, you can see the junction of the two neurons shown. That is the terminal end of the axon, and the other part is the dendrite opening of the next neuron. So as you can see, this is the second neuron dendrite opening, and this is the terminal end. So in between there is a small gap. This gap is called as the synapse. So a chemical is secreted there, and then the impulses jump from one neuron to the other neuron. So that is how they transmit the impulse. Then the axon, as you can see, this long extended dendrite which is called as the axon. This axon, it sets off a chemical changes in it, and because of the chemical secreted there, it helps in transmission of the nerve impulse. So the nerve impulse start jumping, and as you know that there are some small gaps present in between. Those gaps are called as nodes of Ranvier, and these nodes of Ranvier help in easy jumping of the impulse so that it can be transmitted very quickly. And as you can see here, the axon is covered with a whitish color layer on top, and that whitish color layer is called as the myelin sheath. You find two types of nerves. In some nerves there are myelin sheaths present in the nerve cells, and in some the myelin sheath is absent. So those which do not have the myelin sheath, those are called as the non-medulated nerve fibers, and those which have this medulated sheath, they are called as medulated nerve fibers. And this medullary sheath, it is not continuous at all. It is having some small constrictions, and those are the nodes of Ranvier. Then what is the function of this medullary sheath? It increases the speed of the nerve impulse, that is the first thing. And second thing is, what it does is, it insulates the axon. As you can see, there is a plastic wiring covering on the wires, the current carrying wires. On them you have the plastic wiring on top covering. So that is present so that there is no mixing up of current taking place between the two wires which are there bound together. That is, it prevents short circuiting. In the same manner, here the axon which is having the myelin sheath, it works as an insulator or an insulated myelin. So that prevents the mixing up of impulses from the adjacent fibers. Then how is the nerve impulse actually transmitted chemically? Now in this diagram you can see the axon shown, and the axon internally it is having all the negative charges, that is the potassium ions, and externally on the outer surface it is having all the sodium ions which are positive. So they are arranged very well. Once this condition in the stable form, the axon is said to be polarized. Then when an impulse is triggered or any sensation is picked up by the dendrite and it is passed on to the axon, where the sensation is felt by the axon, as you can see here, it is felt at this particular point in the axon. So there immediately what happens, the membrane of the axon becomes more permeable. The permeability of the membrane increases, due to which it easily allows the sodium ions to enter inside. So you can see the positive charges have moved inside and the negative charges have come out. So that is, the sodium ions move in, potassium ions come out. Such a state is termed as a depolarized state, and that region is called as the excited region. Now this excited region, it becomes a impulse for the next one. As you can see in the lower diagram, it becomes an impulse for the adjacent sodium ions. So immediately they move in, the permeability increases, sodium ions move in and the potassium ions move out. Whereas the previous one, it comes back to its original state, that is the polarized state. So depolarization is actually the excitation. Remember this term clearly. So once the depolarization takes place, that is, the sodium ions have come back to the outside. Those are done with the help of something called a sodium pump.